Bold Predictions, Chapter 27 of Bold Predictions. What do you believe that you'd bet your own money on? All of these are a 9 or bolder tonight. So I want to see the betting slips is what I'm saying. First up, this one's really interesting. Matthew from Fairfield, Connecticut said, Alabama will be undefeated at home, but sub 500 on the road. So that means they beat Georgia and Missouri and Auburn because they play them at home. But they will lose at least 3 of these games: Wisconsin, Vandy, Tennessee, LSU, Ole Miss. And, like, you could sell me that Bama loses against Oklahoma or Tennessee or LSU. Wisconsin's a kind of a sleeper type of team. I don't know. But, yeah, I could see that happening. But the kind of team that loses those games, that team's also going to beat Georgia at home? That's interesting. They are minus 9.5 at Wisconsin at FanDuel. They are a slight underdog at LSU right now, plus 2.5. They are slight favorites at Oklahoma. They'll probably be a slight favorite at Tennessee, maybe. They are plus touchdown or better. They're minus touchdown or better against Missouri and Auburn. So they'll be favored against both of those teams by over a touchdown right now. It sounds terrible, doesn't it? It sounds like undefeated at home, sub 500 on the road. That would probably be a 9-3 season. Maybe good enough to make the playoff. Having said that, because of how unique this is, I'm going to make it a 9 on the boldness scale. Next up, this one's also kind of threading the needle, but it could happen. Mitch from Orlando, he said Miami will defeat Florida State twice this season and prevent them from making the playoffs 2 years in a row. So Miami beats FSU in the regular season. They then play in the conference title game. Miami beats them again, and Florida State doesn't make the playoff. That's a 9.5 on the boldness scale. Now, the first two things are not crazy. Florida State plays at Miami. They're a 1.5-point favorite. So that game's really close to being a toss-up. Let's just say, for argument's sake, they played in the conference title game. FanDuel had to set the line today. You're probably looking at FSU minus 3.5 or minus 4, something like that. That's not crazy to think Miami could win either one of those. But here's the thing. We've got to thread a needle here, because if Miami beats Florida State the first time, and that's on October 26th, Florida State still has to be good enough to make it to the ACC title game. But they probably also have to be bad enough to lose another game out of conference, because I need them to probably be a 2-loss team by the time they make it to the ACC title game. But they can't be losing conference games, because then they may not make it to the ACC title game. So they may lose to Notre Dame. They go there on November 9th. Could easily see them losing that game. They'll probably be an underdog that game. So if they lose that one and they've lost against Miami and they go to Charlotte 10-2 and then they lose to Miami again, they're 10-3, yes, this prediction just happened. FSU would be out of the playoff. Miami would have beaten them 2 times. It's just tough to thread the needle. And for that reason, I make that a 9.5 on the boldness scale. We've got another 9.5 here. Remember the rule on the show. If you make a prediction that's a 9.5 or higher and it hits, you get a chalice of supremacy. What about Maryland here? Zach says Maryland's going to win 10 games. Well, I don't think they are, Zach. So I'm going to make that a 9.5. Their total is 6.5 wins. They can only lose 2 of these games. So they could start 6-0. Here's what could be really frustrating for you, Zach. They may start 6-0. UConn, Michigan State, Virginia, Villanova, Indiana, Northwestern. There's a 6-0 start there for Maryland. But then they got Southern Cal, and they go to Minnesota, and then they go to Oregon, and then they got Rutgers, and then they got Iowa and Penn State, and they can only lose 2 of those to be a 10-win team, and that's if they start 6-0. There's a new quarterback there. They're 123rd in returning offensive production. Maryland is not a reload type of team. You don't just blindly believe in them, even though you don't know the players, because they've recruited top 5 classes. They haven't. So that's tough to do. So I got an itchy nose. I'm going to make that a 9.5. I think that's fair. And lastly, Missouri. From Laramie, Wyoming here. We got a prediction about Missouri. They'll make the playoff, and they'll win a playoff game. 9 on the boldness scale. No more, no less. To make the playoff right now, if you wanted to bet yes, Missouri makes the playoff, They are plus 184 at FanDuel. You can go do that right now. Their total over-under is 9.5. They're 17th in returning production, but there's a big split. So they're 10th in returning offensive production. Brady Cook, Luther Burden, but they're 64th in returning defensive production, and they lost stud coaches on that side of the ball as well. They only face one team this entire season that is in the top 10 at FanDuel in odds to win it all, and that's at Alabama on the 26th. But they can't just make the playoff. They've got to make it and win a playoff game. And because of that, I give that a 9 on the boldness scale.